Ambassador Vrel stood in front of the assignment board at Galactic Council Station Harmony 7, his four eyes blinking in disbelief. The Kelthani Commonwealth had given him a new posting, and he could not understand why anyone would consider it an honor. Human Diplomatic Liaison, he read aloud, his mandibles clicking nervously. Effective immediately. The Kelthani were known throughout the galaxy as the best diplomats. They had successfully negotiated first contact with over 400 species. Vrel himself had 20 years of experience. He had worked with aggressive species, paranoid species, and even hive minds that spoke in mathematical equations. But something about this assignment made his antennae twitch with unease. The previous liaison, Ambassador Threll, had requested an immediate transfer after only 6 weeks. That was unusual. The Kelthani took pride in their work. They did not quit. Vrel accessed the briefing files. Most of it was standard information about humanity. They were new to the Galactic Coalition, only 3 months since first contact. They came from a planet called Earth, had recently developed faster-than-light travel and showed remarkable technological progress. Nothing seemed dangerous about them. Then he found Threll's personal notes. They were marked as unofficial observations, not part of the formal report. Vrel read them twice, his confusion growing with each word. "Do not trust their smiles," Threll had written. "The more polite they become, the more danger you are in. I cannot explain this properly. You must see it yourself. Request transfer as soon as possible." Vrel closed the file. Threll had always been dramatic, but never irrational. Something had frightened him badly. The meeting room was standard coalition design, comfortable for most species. Vrel arrived early, reviewing his notes one more time. The door opened and 3 humans entered. The first was a male of middle age, his hair showing gray at the temples. He wore a simple dark suit and carried a data pad. His face arranged itself into what Vrel recognized as a human smile. "Ambassador Vrel," the human said, his voice warm and friendly. "What a pleasure to meet you. I am Dae Kim, Chief Human Ambassador to the Coalition. This is Hana Park, our cultural attaché, and Tai Song, our trade negotiator." The female, Hana, had sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. She smiled too, but it looked more natural than Dae's. Tae was younger, with an eager expression that reminded Vrel of junior diplomats everywhere. "The pleasure is mine," Vrel responded, following protocol. "I look forward to working with your delegation." They sat down to discuss routine matters. Vrel found the humans surprisingly easy to work with. They were professional, well-prepared, and respectful of coalition customs. By the end of the first week, he wondered why Threll had been so worried. Then the Molthar situation began. The Molthar hierarchy was one of the more aggressive species in the coalition. They were large, heavily muscled, and believed that strength determined rights. They had filed a complaint against human trade ships, claiming the humans were encroaching on Molthar territory. The dispute resolution meeting was held in a neutral chamber. The Molthar ambassador, Crag, was twice the size of any human. His scales were dark red, a color that indicated anger in his species. He had brought 4 guards, all armed within legal limits. Dae arrived alone, still smiling. "Ambassador Crag," Dae said pleasantly, "thank you so much for agreeing to meet. I am certain we can find an agreeable solution to this misunderstanding." Crag snorted, a sound like rocks grinding together. "There is no misunderstanding, human. Your ships trespass on our trade routes. You will cease immediately, or we will cease them for you." Vrel watched Dae carefully. The human's smile did not fade. If anything, it grew slightly wider. "I appreciate your directness," Dae said, his tone still friendly. "It is so refreshing when people say exactly what they mean. Please, help me understand your concerns in more detail." The emphasis on certain words was subtle, but Vrel's antennae picked it up. Something in the human's tone had changed, though the pleasant expression remained the same. Crag apparently noticed nothing wrong. He leaned forward, clearly thinking he had the advantage. "Our concerns are simple. You are weak. You are new. You will obey our rules in this sector, or you will learn why the Molthar are feared." "I see," Dae said softly, still smiling. "Thank you for clarifying your position so thoroughly. I believe we have a very clear understanding now." The meeting ended shortly after. Crag left looking satisfied. The humans had made no promises, issued no threats, but the Molthar ambassador seemed to think he had won. Vrel approached Dae afterward. Ambassador, should we not file a formal protest about the Molthar threats? Day's smile finally faded, replaced by a neutral expression. No need, Ambassador Vrel. The situation will resolve itself naturally. But thank you for your concern. It is very much appreciated. There was that emphasis again. Vrel's antennae twitched with instinctive unease. 48 hours later, the news began to spread through the station. 3 Molthar cargo ships had experienced simultaneous navigation failures, causing them to drift into restricted zones. Their banking systems suffered mysterious technical glitches that froze millions of credits. Most damaging classified information about Molthar military movements had somehow become public knowledge, available to anyone with a data terminal. The Molthar hierarchy issued a formal apology to the human delegation within the week. Crag himself delivered it, his scales pale with what Vrel recognized as fear in his species. Day accepted the apology with grace and a warm smile. These things happen, he said kindly. I am just glad we could resolve our misunderstanding so peacefully. Vrel began keeping detailed notes that evening. He called it the courtesy paradox. Observation 1, he wrote. When Ambassador Day becomes more polite, he is not becoming less dangerous. He is becoming more dangerous. The courtesy appears to be a warning system. He paused, his claws clicking on the data pad. Observation 2. The Molthar threatened the humans. Within 2 days, the Molthar suffered extensive coordinated problems across multiple systems. The humans claim no responsibility. The problems appear to be technical failures and bad luck. The probability of these events occurring naturally and simultaneously is less than 0.001%. Vrel looked at his notes for a long time. Then he added one more line. Observation 3. Ambassador Day smiled more as the Molthar ambassador made threats. At the time, I thought he might be nervous. I was wrong. He was deciding what to do about the Molthar. The smile was not weakness. It was restraint. He saved the file and marked it as personal observations. Then he scheduled a meeting with the human delegation for the next morning. If he was going to be their liaison, he needed to understand what he was actually dealing with. Perhaps Vrel had been right to request a transfer. But Vrel was too curious now to follow that advice. The humans were fascinating and terrifying in equal measure, and he suspected he had only begun to see what they were truly capable of. Minji Cho remembered her first day at the Earth Diplomatic Corps training facility. She had been so proud to be accepted, so eager to represent humanity among the stars. The instructor, a severe woman with gray hair and cold eyes, had crushed that enthusiasm within the first hour. You are not here to make friends, the instructor had said. You are here to protect human interest while maintaining peace. Sometimes those goals will conflict. When they do, you will smile and be polite while you destroy anyone who threatens us. The class had shifted uncomfortably. One student raised his hand. Ma'am, isn't that manipulative? The instructor's expression had not changed. No, it is honest. We give clear warnings. If people ignore those warnings because they mistake courtesy for weakness, that is their mistake. We learned this lesson from our own history. The worst atrocities humans ever committed often came with the most polite language. Now we use that understanding defensively. She had introduced them to Diplomatic Protocol 7 that same day. Never show anger in negotiations. Smile when you mean business. The more dangerous the situation, the more courteous you must be. Give them every chance to walk away. Minji had thought it was strange at the time. Now, 6 months into her posting at Harmony 7 Station, she was beginning to understand. The Vraxian swarm had been making demands for weeks. They were a collective intelligence. Thousands of small flying creatures that moved and thought as one. They had sent their war fleet to orbit near human colonies. And now they wanted the humans to abandon 3 resource-rich asteroid fields. These territories belonged to the swarm. Their spokesperson buzzed. The sound translated by coalition computers. Your presence disturbs our expansion plans. Vacate immediately. Ambassador Day had called a press conference. Minji stood behind him with the other junior diplomats, watching how he handled the situation. The senior diplomats, Jin-Ho Lee and Sora Bayek, flanked him on either side. Both wore pleasant expressions. We thank the Vraxian swarm for their passionate communication, Day said to the gathered reporters and diplomats. His smile was warm and genuine-looking. We appreciate their directness. In fact, we would like to invite their representatives to share tea and discuss this matter in more detail. Tea. Minji had learned that when senior diplomats invited someone to tea, they were preparing for war. The beverage itself was irrelevant. The invitation meant, "We are about to show you something important." The Vraxian spokesperson, a dense cluster of the small flying creatures, buzzed with what the translator interpreted as amusement. "We do not drink your earth liquids. We do not negotiate with species that own only 3 colonies. Vacate our territory within 10 days or we will vacate you." Day's smile somehow became even warmer. "I understand your position completely. Thank you for making it so clear. We look forward to demonstrating our own perspective." The press conference ended. Back in the human delegation offices, the atmosphere changed immediately. Day's smile vanished. Jinho and Sora pulled up strategic displays. Hana Park began reviewing psychological profiles of Vraxian leadership. Day said quietly, "Time to make some calls. I need the colonial fleets ready to move within 6 hours." "Already done," Taesong replied. They were standing by. Minji watched, fascinated. The humans had anticipated this. Of course they had. That was why the smile had been so warm, so genuine. He had already known exactly how he would respond. "Public statements?" Jinho asked. "Keep them cheerful," Day said. "Grateful tone, friendly words. Make sure everyone knows we tried to negotiate peacefully." Over the next week, Minji watched the situation unfold. Publicly, the humans continued to express hope for peaceful resolution. Every statement from the diplomatic corps was polite, optimistic, and friendly. Privately, human fleets moved into position. Not aggressively. They were simply conducting routine military exercises in the area. Such a coincidence that these exercises happened to be right along the Vraxian approach routes. Vrel, the Kelthani ambassador, came to visit. Minji had been assigned to receive him. His antennae were vibrating constantly, a sign of agitation in his species. "Miss Cho," he said formally, "I have been monitoring human fleet movements and your public statements. The disconnect between your words and actions is significant." "I confess I am confused," Minji smiled. She could not help it. "We are preparing for military exercises, Ambassador Vrel. All proper notifications have been filed with coalition authorities." "Yes," Vrel said slowly. "But the Vraxians are moving their war fleet directly into your exercise zone. Surely you noticed?" "We did notice," Minji confirmed. "We sent them a message warning them about the exercises. We would hate for there to be any accidents." Vrel's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "You warned them?" "Of course. It would be terribly rude not to." The Vraxian war fleet encountered the human exercises 3 days later. What had been described as routine training turned out to involve 200 human warships performing complex maneuvers that just happened to surround the Vraxian fleet completely. The Vraxians received a message from Ambassador Day. "We are so sorry for any confusion regarding the location of our exercises. We would hate for there to be any misunderstandings. Would you like an escort back to your territory? We absolutely insist on making sure you get home safely." The Vraxian fleet retreated within hours. They issued a formal apology the next day. The asteroid fields were recognized as human territory. The Vraxians never threatened human colonies again. At the celebration in the human delegation offices, Minji approached Jinho Lee. He was older than most of the staff, with extensive experience in Earth military, before joining the diplomatic corps. "Sir," she said quietly. "Was anyone going to shoot?" Jinho looked at her seriously. "If they had opened fire, yes. We would have defended ourselves. But we gave them every opportunity to leave peacefully. That is why we smiled. That is why we were polite. We were offering them a way out. And if they had not taken it, then we would have been equally polite while we destroyed them completely," Jinho said. "But we would have been able to show the entire galaxy that we tried everything to avoid violence. Our courtesy is not fake, Minji. It is real. It is our self-control and it is our warning system." Minji thought about this.
Like giving them a countdown?
Exactly. The more polite we become, the closer they are to the deadline. Most species do not understand this yet. They think courtesy means weakness. "But we learned different from our own history," Minji said, remembering her training. Jinho nodded. "The worst wars in human history, the most terrible things we did to each other, often came wrapped in polite language. Bureaucratic euphemisms, diplomatic doublespeak, formal declarations that hid atrocities. We learned that lesson thoroughly. Now we use it. When we are truly polite, we are giving you every chance to survive. Across the room, Vrel was speaking with Ambassador Day. Minji could not hear their conversation, but she saw Vrel pull out a datapad and begin writing notes. She wondered what the Kelthani ambassador was documenting. Probably his observations about human behavior. She hoped he would share them with other species. It would save everyone a lot of trouble if the galaxy understood. When humans become extremely polite, you should run, not because humans were monsters, but because they were being merciful. The courtesy was the warning. The smile was the countdown, and if you were still there when the countdown ended, you had only yourself to blame. Minji looked at Jinho's calm expression, at Day's friendly smile across the room, at Sora's gentle demeanor. These were good people. They were not cruel. But they were dangerous and they knew it. Perhaps that was the real lesson of Protocol 7. Being polite was not about hiding your strength. It was about controlling it, warning others and giving them every chance to choose peace. The fact that so many species chose wrong was not humanity's fault. The message arrived at Aero 300 station time, when most of the diplomatic corps was sleeping. Vrel received it on his personal communicator because he had set alerts for anything involving the human delegation. Hostage situation, the message read. 3 human diplomats taken by Zormati Empire. Demands being formulated. Vrel was out of his quarters and heading to the human delegation offices within minutes. His years of diplomatic experience told him this was serious. The Zormati Empire was known for brutal tactics. They had subjugated dozens of species through overwhelming military force and terror. Taking diplomats hostage was exactly the kind of thing they would do. He expected to find chaos when he arrived. Maybe anger, certainly military preparations, probably heated discussions about rescue operations. What he found instead made his antennae go completely still with confusion. The office was quiet. Ambassador Day sat at his desk, reviewing something on his datapad. Hana Park was making tea. Tai Song was on a communication line, speaking in low tones. They looked calm, professional, almost relaxed. Ambassador Vrel, Day said, looking up with a slight smile. I appreciate you coming so quickly. We have a situation. I received the alert, Vrel said. Minji Cho and 2 other junior diplomats were taken during a cultural exchange on Zormati Prime. The Empire is demanding your hyperspace technology. Yes, Day confirmed. They have given us 72 hours to comply or they will execute the hostages. Vrel waited for more. For anger, for threats, for something. Day just looked at him with that small, pleasant smile. Ambassador, Vrel said carefully, I have worked with many species in hostage situations. Usually there is more urgency. Oh, there is urgency, Day assured him. We are very concerned for our colleagues' well-being. Very concerned indeed. The emphasis on those words made Vrel's biological threat detection activate. His species had evolved on a world with many predators. They had developed instincts that warned them when a predator was close, even if they could not see it. Those instincts were screaming at him now. Day was still smiling pleasantly. We will be sending a response to the Zormati Empire shortly, Day continued. I would be grateful if you could review it for proper diplomatic protocol. We want to make sure we follow all coalition guidelines. Grateful. There was that word again. Vrel had noticed that humans used certain words when they were most dangerous. Grateful was one of them. Appreciate was another. Concerned definitely counted. He read the response Day handed him. It was the most polite document he had ever seen. Every sentence was courteous. Every word was carefully chosen. It expressed deep concern for the hostages, gratitude for the opportunity to resolve the situation peacefully, and hope for continued positive relations with the Zormati Empire. It did not agree to any demands. It did not threaten. It simply stated that humanity looked forward to demonstrating their commitment to peaceful resolution. This is... Vrel struggled for words. This is extremely polite. Yes, Day agreed. We want to be very clear about our intentions. Vrel looked at the human ambassador for a long moment. Day's expression was pleasant and calm, but something in his eyes reminded Vrel of the apex predators on his homeworld. Patient, focused, waiting. I should speak with someone, Vrel said suddenly. Excuse me. He found Hyun Kang in one of the lower levels of the station. Hyun was officially listed as a cultural researcher studying alien social structures. Vrel had suspected from the beginning that he was actually military intelligence. Now he needed to confirm it. "Ambassador Vrel," Hyun said when they met in a quiet corridor, "you look distressed." "Your people are too calm," Vrel said bluntly. 3 diplomats are being held hostage by one of the most brutal empires in the galaxy. Ambassador Day is smiling. "I need to understand what is actually happening." Hyun studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Walk with me." They moved to an observation deck that overlooked the station's docking areas. Hyun stood looking out at the stars for a while before speaking. "Do you know much about human history, Ambassador?" "Some," Vrel admitted. "You had many wars." "We did. Terrible ones. And do you know what we learned from those wars?" Hyun turned to look at him. "We learned that the worst atrocities were often preceded by the most polite language. Formal declarations, bureaucratic procedures, courteous letters that announced terrible things. I do not understand how this relates." "We learned it," Hyun interrupted gently, "and now we use it. When humans are at our most polite, we are at our most dangerous. Not because we are being fake. Because we are controlling ourselves. Because we are giving clear warnings before we act. The Zormati took hostages," Vrel said. "This requires action, not warnings." "Oh, there will be action," Hyun assured him. "There is already action, but we will give them every chance to release the hostages peacefully. That is what the courtesy means. We are being merciful, and if they do not accept your mercy," Hyun's expression became very serious, "then they will learn that human courtesy has limits. But they will never be able to say we did not warn them." Over the next week, Vrel watched something extraordinary happen. Publicly, the humans continued to send polite messages to the Zormati Empire. They expressed concern. They offered to negotiate. They suggested various peaceful solutions. Privately, the Zormati Empire began to fall apart. The Emperor's personal fortune vanished from secure accounts. No one could explain how. Banking systems across 3 worlds simply showed the accounts as empty. Classified information about Zormati war crimes appeared on public networks. Videos, documents, testimony from victims. Things the Empire had kept hidden for decades. Military commanders began receiving evidence that their encrypted communications were no longer secure. Some of them started to disappear, taken by their own people who suddenly decided to rebel. The Zormati economy went into freefall. Trade partners received better offers from mysterious sources. Supply lines broke down. Infrastructure suffered unexplained failures. Not a single shot was fired by human forces. On the 6th day, Minji and the other hostages were released by a Zormati rebel faction. The faction claimed they had always opposed the Emperor's brutal policies. They wanted better relations with the Galactic Coalition. Ambassador Day sent them a congratulatory message and a gift basket. "Thank you for resolving this unfortunate misunderstanding," the message read. "We remain optimistic about future relations with the Zormati people." The Emperor himself abdicated within 2 weeks. He fled to a remote colony with what little remained of his fortune. The new Zormati government was much more interested in peaceful cooperation with other species. Vrel reviewed all of his notes from the incident. He had documented everything, from Day's initial pleasant smile to the systematic dismantling of an empire. The pattern was clear. They did not save their people through violence, he wrote. They saved them through controlled application of power. Every action was preceded by courteous warnings that the Zormati ignored. The Empire thought courtesy meant weakness. They were wrong. He looked at his final note for a long time before adding one more observation. When Ambassador Day smiles and says he is grateful for an opportunity to demonstrate human resolve, he is not making a threat. He is delivering a final warning. What happens after that is not his fault. It is the fault of those who refuse to listen. Vrel saved the document and marked it carefully. He was beginning to compile something important. Not just observations about one species, but a guide. A survival manual for anyone who had to deal with human diplomats. Because the galaxy needed to understand. When humans become extremely polite, they are not surrendering. They are giving you one last chance to walk away. The wise ones would learn to take it. Vrel had not meant for his private notes to become public. He had been documenting human diplomatic behavior for his own reference, trying to understand the patterns he kept seeing. The file was supposed to be secured, accessible only to him. Then someone in the Kelthani diplomatic network had found it. They had read it, copied it, and shared it. Within 2 weeks, Ambassador Vrel's guide to human courtesy was being passed around diplomatic circles across the galaxy. His personal communicator would not stop buzzing with messages. Ambassador Vrel, your observations about the phrase "I appreciate your input" are extremely valuable. Could you clarify? The section about excessive use of "please" saved my delegation from making a terrible mistake. Is it true that when humans say "bless your heart," it is actually an insult? Vrel had not written about that particular phrase. He made a note to investigate it. The messages kept coming from different species, all adding their own observations about human diplomatic behavior. Vrel realized he was not alone in noticing these patterns. Others had seen the same thing, suffered the same consequences, learned the same lessons. He decided to organize everything properly. The Pelthori ambassador sent him a detailed account. "We had a trade dispute with the humans 6 months ago," the message read. "Their negotiator, a woman named Sora Beck, listened to our demands for an hour. At the end, she smiled and said, 'Bless your heart.' We thought it was a blessing. Within 3 days, our economy collapsed. We lost 2 major trade routes and 4 key partners. We issued an apology within the week. The humans were very gracious about accepting it." Vrel added this to his guide under a new section, phrases that sound pleasant but mean danger. The Quellan contributed their own experience. They were a crystalline species, logical and straightforward in their communications. A human diplomat named Taesong used the phrase, "I'll take that under advisement," during negotiations. We thought he was agreeing to consider our proposal. Instead, we lost 3 colonies to independence movements we did not know existed. The humans claimed they had simply provided educational materials and humanitarian aid. When we protested, Tay said he was happy we were working through our internal issues. We learned later that, "I'll take that under advisement" means, "I have already decided you are wrong and will act accordingly." More observations arrived daily. The Hive Mind Collective, the Thanner Republic, the Wessic Federation, all had stories about human diplomacy gone wrong for them. Vrel compiled everything into a comprehensive document. He organized it by warning signs, phrases, and behaviors. He included examples from multiple species and contexts. He tried to explain not just what humans did, but why. The guide was nearly complete when Ambassador Narration requested a meeting with him. Vrel's antennae went flat against his head when he received the invitation. Narration specialized in conflict resolution for the human delegation. She was known for being extremely effective at her job. Her record showed that she had never failed to resolve a dispute in humanity's favor. The meeting request was very polite. Vrel seriously considered refusing. But curiosity and professional duty won out. He agreed to meet her in a neutral conference room. Nari arrived alone, carrying a datapad and a warm smile. She was perhaps 40 in human years, with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. She sat down across from Vrel and placed the datapad on the table between them. "Ambassador Vrel," she said pleasantly, "thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me. I wanted to discuss your guide." Vrel's antennae twitched nervously. "I apologize if it has caused offense." "It was meant only as personal observations." "Offense?" Nari looked genuinely surprised. "Not at all. It is actually quite thorough. What a comprehensive analysis you have compiled. How very thoughtful of you. Every word was perfectly polite. Every emphasis was carefully placed." Vrel felt his species' biological fear response activate at full strength. His instincts were screaming at him that a predator was present, even though Nari was sitting calmly with a friendly expression. He began, then stopped. His translators were having trouble keeping up with his rapid mandible clicks of distress. Nari's smile softened. Then, to Vrel's shock, she laughed. It was genuine laughter, warm and human. "I am sorry," she said, her tone shifting to something more natural. "I could not resist. You should see your antennae right now. But I am not here to threaten you, Ambassador. Quite the opposite. Your guide is accurate, and I want to help you understand why." Vrel's antennae slowly rose from their flattened position. You are not angry? About what? You documented our behavior accurately. Everything in your guide is true." Nari leaned back in her chair. "Let me explain something about human culture. We are not monsters. Ambassador Vrel. We learn to be polite when we are angry because in our history, anger led to terrible decisions. But your politeness is also a weapon," Vrel said carefully. "It is both," Nari agreed. It is self-control and warning system combined. When we become extremely courteous, we are doing two things. First, we are controlling our own reactions so we can think clearly. Second, we are giving the other party clear warnings about consequences. She pulled up several files on her datapad. Look at these historical examples from Earth. Formal declarations of war that used extremely polite language. Diplomatic correspondence before conflicts that was courteous and proper. We learned that the most dangerous communications are often the most formally polite. So you weaponized courtesy, Vrel said. We understood it, Nari corrected. And now we use it honestly. When we are at our most polite, we are genuinely giving people every chance to walk away. The courtesy is the countdown. The more polite we become, the closer you are to consequences. But those consequences only happen if you ignore the warnings. Vrel thought about this. The Zormadi Empire ignored the warnings. They did. We were extremely polite. We expressed concern, gratitude, hope for peaceful resolution. They thought we were weak. They were wrong. Nari's expression became very serious. We gave them every opportunity to release the hostages peacefully. Every message was a warning. They chose to ignore those warnings. And you destroyed them without firing a shot, Vrel said quietly. We did, but we were very polite about it first. Nari smiled slightly. That is the part other species keep missing. We are not being fake or manipulative. We are being honest. The courtesy is real. It is our way of respecting our opponents enough to warn them clearly. We are saying, here is your chance to choose peace. Here is your opportunity to walk away. We are giving you time to reconsider. What if they do not reconsider? Then they have chosen the consequences, Nari said simply. And we proceed with clear conscience, knowing we tried everything to avoid conflict. Vrel looked at his guide on the datapad. All his careful observations, all the patterns he had documented. So this is all correct? Completely. In fact, I would like to help you improve it. Add context. Explain the cultural reasons behind our behavior. Make it something that can actually help other species understand us better. Nari slid a memory chip across the table. These are some additional examples and explanations. Cultural notes about human history and psychology. I think they would make your guide even more valuable. Vrel stared at the chip. You want to help me write a manual about how to survive dealing with humans? Yes, because right now too many species make mistakes because they do not understand us. They think courtesy equals weakness. They ignore clear warnings. Then they suffer consequences and blame us for being aggressive. Nari's expression was earnest. If your guide helps prevent those misunderstandings, everyone benefits. Fewer conflicts. Better relations. More species learning to read our actual signals instead of misinterpreting them. You are trying to teach the galaxy how to recognize when humans are dangerous, Vrel said slowly. We are trying to teach the galaxy how to recognize when humans are being merciful, Nari corrected. There is a difference. Vrel picked up the memory chip. His antennae were calm now, no longer detecting threat. I will incorporate your additions. Thank you, Nari said, standing. And Ambassador? For what it is worth, your observations have been extremely valuable. Sometimes humans need reminders about how others perceive our behavior. Your guide is helping us be more conscious about our communication. After she left, Vrel spent several hours reviewing the additional material. Nari had provided historical context, psychological research, and cultural notes that explained so much about human behavior. He updated his guide with new sections. He added explanations about why humans valued restraint, how their history had taught them to distrust displays of anger, why they used courtesy as both shield and warning. The final entry he added was simple. Humans are not monsters. They are simply honest about their nature. When a human diplomat becomes extremely polite, they are not being manipulative. They are being merciful. They are giving clear warnings. They are respecting you enough to offer you a chance to survive. The politeness is your countdown. Use it wisely. He published the updated guide on the diplomatic network. Within days, it was required reading for junior diplomats across the galaxy. Several species made it mandatory training material. And slowly, very slowly, the galaxy began to learn when humans smile and speak courteously during conflict. The Krell Dominion had been watching humanity for months. They were the largest military power in the sector, with fleets that numbered in the thousands and territories spanning 100 star systems. They had conquered species, absorbed empires, and crushed anyone who challenged their authority. And they thought humans were hilarious. High Commander Vork reviewed the intercepted diplomatic communications with amusement. "Look at these messages," he told his officers. "They thank everyone. They apologize for minor delays. They use words like grateful and appreciate constantly. This species conquered nothing before joining the coalition. They have fewer than 20 colonies, and they think they can compete with us through politeness." His officers laughed. The idea that courtesy could be strength was absurd to Krell culture. Strength came from military power, from the willingness to use force, from making others fear you. Vork drafted an ultimatum. It was simple and direct, as all Krell communications were. Humanity would submit to Krell authority, accept Krell governance over their colonies, and pay tribute. If they refused, the Dominion would take what it wanted by force. The ultimatum was broadcast across the galaxy. Vork made sure it was public, humiliating. He wanted everyone to see the humans submit or be destroyed. Either way, it would demonstrate Krell dominance. Ambassador Vrel received the Krell ultimatum in his office on Harmony 7 station. He immediately pulled up his guide on human diplomatic behavior and started checking entries. Then he sent an urgent message to High Commander Vork. "Commander, I strongly advise you to withdraw this ultimatum immediately. You have triggered every danger sign in human diplomatic behavior. You are in serious danger." Vork's response came within the hour, broadcast publicly. He was laughing. "The Kelthani ambassador warns us about human courtesy. This is the funniest thing I have heard all year. We thank Ambassador Vrel for his concern, but the Krell Dominion does not fear polite words." Vrel's antennae went completely flat. He sent another message, this one to the human delegation. "Ambassador Day, I must speak with you urgently." He found Day in his office with the entire senior diplomatic staff. Hana Park, Taesong, Jinho Lee, Sora Bayek, Narration, and even Hyun Kang were present. They were drafting a response. "Ambassador Vrel," Day said, looking up with a warm smile. "Thank you so much for coming. We were just preparing our reply to the Krell Dominion. Would you like to review it?" Vrel read the response 3 times, his translator struggling to process the layers of courtesy. "We are grateful for the Krell Dominion's candid communication about their perspective. We appreciate their willingness to express their position so clearly and publicly. We look forward to demonstrating the depth of human diplomatic tradition and our commitment to peaceful resolution of all disputes. We remain optimistic about future relations with the Krell people." Every word was polite. Every phrase was courteous. Every sentence was professional and diplomatic. Vrel looked up at Day. The human ambassador's smile was pleasant and calm, but his eyes held that same predator focus Vrel had seen before. "Ambassador," Vrel said quietly, "this response contains every warning phrase in my guide, multiple times." "Does it?" Day asked innocently. "We were simply trying to be thorough. Grateful, appreciate, look forward to demonstrating, remain optimistic." Vrel's antennae twitched as he listed them. "These are all maximum warning level phrases. Together in one message, they represent a very clear countdown," Narration finished. "We are giving them every chance, Ambassador Vrel." "They will not take it," Vrel said. "The Krell do not understand courtesy as warning. They see it as weakness." "Then they will learn," Hana Park said softly. Minji Cho entered the office with updated reports. She had been promoted to full diplomatic status after the Zormati incident. "Commander, the Krell are broadcasting mock responses to our reply. They are calling us cowards. They say our politeness proves we have no military strength." Day nodded calmly. "Send them a follow-up message. Thank them for their continued communication. Tell them we appreciate their passion." Vrel watched the next 3 months unfold with a mixture of fascination and horror. It was like watching a predator slowly circle its prey, giving it every opportunity to escape before the final strike. Publicly, the humans continued to send polite messages. They expressed concern about miscommunication. They offered diplomatic solutions. They suggested neutral arbitration. Every message was courteous, professional, and increasingly detailed in its courtesy. Privately, Human actions were precise and devastating. The Krell had built their empire on conquered species who worked as slaves or second-class citizens. Humanitarian organizations began providing aid to these populations. Educational materials, communication equipment, medical supplies, and quietly, weapons and training. Krell banking systems experienced strange irregularities. Nothing major at first, just small errors that accumulated. Accounts that did not balance. Transactions that took longer than they should. Within weeks, the Dominion's economy was struggling. Military codes that the Krell thought were secure began showing up in unexpected places. Their fleet movements became public knowledge. Their classified weapons research appeared on open networks. Trade partners received better offers from human corporations. Allies found new opportunities that did not involve supporting Krell expansion. The subject species that the Krell had conquered began to rebel, not all at once, but in coordinated waves. They had weapons now, training, communication networks. They fought together instead of being crushed separately. Not a single shot was fired by human forces at Krell targets. Vrel documented everything in his guide. He added real-time updates as events unfolded. Other species watched through him, learning what happened when someone ignored every warning sign in human diplomatic behavior. Update Day 45, he wrote. The Krell continue to mock human courtesy publicly. Their empire is dissolving from within. They do not seem to understand the connection. Update Day 67, he continued. 3 more Krell subject species have declared independence. Human diplomatic messages remain optimistic about peaceful resolution. The Krell call this weakness. They are wrong. Update Day 89, he noted. The Krell Dominion is now fighting internal rebellions on 12 worlds simultaneously. Their economy is in collapse. Their military is overstretched. Humans sent another message thanking them for the opportunity to demonstrate the value of diplomatic patience. On Day 93, the Krell Dominion ceased to exist as a unified empire. The member species had all broken away. The core Krell worlds were isolated, surrounded by newly independent neighbors who remembered centuries of oppression. Ambassador Day sent a final message to the former Krell territories. We hope this has been an educational experience for all parties involved. We remain optimistic about future relations with the successor governments in this sector. We appreciate the opportunity to have demonstrated the effectiveness of patient, peaceful diplomatic resolution. Vrel added this message to his guide along with extensive analysis. Then he published the final version with a new title, The Complete Guide to Surviving Human Diplomatic Relations, a Manual for Galactic Diplomats. The final entry was the most important one. Humans are not monsters. They do not seek conflict. They genuinely prefer peace. But they are the most effective military force in the galaxy, and they know it. Their courtesy is not weakness or deception. It is restraint and respect. When humans become extremely polite during conflict, they are being merciful. They are giving clear warnings. They are offering multiple chances to choose peace. The politeness is your countdown to consequences. If you are still there when the countdown ends, you have ignored every warning they gave you. What happens then is not their fault. It is yours. Learn to recognize the signs. Learn to take the warnings seriously. Learn to run when they smile. Your survival may depend on it. The guide became mandatory reading at every diplomatic academy in the galaxy. Junior diplomats studied it before their first assignments. Senior ambassadors kept it as reference material. Minji Cho was assigned to teach a class about human diplomatic culture at the Coalition Diplomatic Institute. Vrel attended her first lecture. She stood in front of a mixed class of young diplomats from a dozen species. Human courtesy is not manipulation, she began. It is honest communication. When we smile during conflict, we are not hiding our intentions. We are controlling ourselves. When we use phrases like, I appreciate your candor or thank you for being so clear, we are not being sarcastic. We are genuinely thanking you for showing us exactly who you are and what you intend to do. A young Quellan raised a crystalline appendage. But why not simply state your intentions directly? Why the indirect language? Minji smiled. It was a genuine, warm expression. Because we learned from our own history that direct threats often escalate conflict. Courtesy gives everyone time to reconsider. It gives people a way to back down without losing face. It provides multiple opportunities for peace. We are being more merciful with courtesy than we would be with threats. What about species that see courtesy as weakness? Another student asked. Then they suffer the consequences of their mistake, Minji said simply. But they cannot say we did not warn them. That is the point. We give clear warnings. We provide multiple chances.